Relationships aren't always sunshine and rainbows. Just like in nature, you can't have rainbows without a little rain.
Journey with us,
Shani Goodson
and Dr. Sunjata as we share stories and insights about our thriving, unconventional love life and our unique take on relationships and consensual non-monogamy. What's happening, everybody?
Hi.
Welcome back to another episode of Sunshine and Rainbows.
Welcome back.
Happy to be here with you all once again to talk about another topic concerning polyamory and consensual non-monogamy.
I feel like there's always something to talk about here.
Yeah,
always something to talk about, especially if you are in online spaces at all. I get so many ideas from there about like what we should talk about. Sometimes I stay in certain groups online just to get ideas, for what we should talk about here, to be honest.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Well, I also want to say, if you all have any ideas, a topic that you would like us to cover, please drop it in the comment section, and we'd love to.
And questions.
Yeah, comments, questions, feedback, and we'd love to.
Episode ideas, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, take y'all ideas as well.
So how you feeling?
How am I feeling today? I'm feeling good. I had a good day yesterday. Life been lifing lately. But yesterday, as the day was winding down, I was able to really take it all in and be like, I had a good day. There was nothing rocky, nothing out of left field. It was a pretty easy breezy day. So I'm bringing that energy into today, into this recording. How about you?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good too. Yesterday was fun. The weather is getting nice where we are at the moment, and that always puts me in a good mood. So I am getting more vitamin D, because I'm getting more sunshine and a lot less stress because, kids are not in school right now. So it's like not having to get up every morning and not feeling like I'm on this, time bound, everything has to be done and, hurry up. So pretty good.
Love it. Love to hear it. So what are we going to talk about today?
I was going to ask you that.
You always ask me, so I'm trying to switch it up
really?
for the people.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I was trying to switch it up. I feel like you always ask me how I'm feeling and ask me what we're gonna talk about. So I was trying to switch it up. Look at us trying to switch it up.
Yeah. I thought it was the other way. I do usually ask how you're feeling first, but I thought anyway.
So
all right, what are we gonna talk about?
We're talking about debunking polyamory myths. So we're going to talk about some things that have come up in the mainstream and also in groups, a lot of assumptions that we've seen made, and just things that we think we want to bring some of our perspective to as people who are actually living like this. So we just want to bring a little perspective.
Yeah, man, whether it be from just randoms online or even from family and friends, there's always these common themes of perceptions that people have about polyamory since it's hit the mainstream in the last 5 years or so.
Yeah, definitely. And as soon as you said randoms, I was like, man, I could think of a few already just off the top of my head, just random people in my inbox. So let's talk about it. Let's get into it. What's the first one you think we should go over?
So let's start with the idea that everyone is in or wants to be in a triad, or what they call it, a throuple.
A throuple, and almost always two women and a man.
Two women and a man throuple,
and that's what everybody who is polyamorous wants,
or is in, and that is what polyamory is. A lot of people truly believe that that's what polyamory is, and if you've been following us for a while, you know that we did a whole episode on this. So we got to start out just talking about this for any of the newcomers who are seeing this for the first time.
Yeah, that was actually quite a popular episode too. So check it out. A lot of people were interested in that one, which was kind of surprising to us. So I was like, that's cool. I think it was called Polyamory is more than triads or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But this is just so not true. First of all, I think triads are probably the hardest dynamic, I put that in quotes, to maintain. That's one. And two, most people, from what I can see, who are in the polyamorous space want to be able to date and relate freely. I know tons of people who are solo polyamorous. In fact, I would say a lot of the people who I associate with, I identify at least kind of on that side of the spectrum, more like solo polyamory energy. So, or they're like egalitarian, more egalitarian or more relationship anarchist style.
Yeah.
And we talked about all that last season as well.
Yeah. Most people, again, that it's I will say it's interesting because there's certain groups on Facebook where you find polyamorous people, and there's groups that kind of cater to the different desires or energies.
Yep.
And there's certain groups on Facebook where, and I would say these groups tend to be like the largest ones where there are people seeking the triad dynamic.
Oh my gosh, it's when will we find our queen? We've been looking for so long. When will we find her? And they're posting pictures all the time. Yes. Those would you consider those polyamory groups?
So they're like polygamy groups.
They're poly groups.
Yeah, they're poly groups. They're polygamy groups for people who aren't necessarily doing it for like religious reasons.
Right.
And ultimately,
yes.
What I've observed is that that's like the easiest entry point for people who are still in that deconstructing process of letting go of compulsory monogamy like beliefs and behaviors, and also fears around possessiveness and controlling and all these different things. So a lot of people's entry point into this life of consensual non-monogamy is monogamy plus one.
Yeah. And it's very logical, honestly. It makes a lot of sense to want something closed, something with fidelity, if that's all you've ever known.
Right.
And you're worried about your own spot in this person's life and heart, etc.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense. I have even though it's not what I want, I definitely understand why people want that.
And let me explain monogamy plus one. Usually it is a couple, whether they're married or they're just partners, male, female, man, woman. And they initially get the idea of, let's try to bring another woman into our dynamic. Because for the woman, it gives her a sense of, well, if he's going to be out here with other women or looking or seeking or he's interested in other women, at least I'm a part of it. I know who she is.
She might be bisexual.
She might be bisexual. Sometimes she's not even bisexual.
Sometimes it's performative.
It's performative to keep her man happy or kind of like control.
Definitely.
Or she's bisexual and it's like, they see it as a win-win. It's like you're bisexual and you get to have experiences with women. And for the man, it's like you want to have experience with other women. And now, we could do it together instead of you cheating.
Right.
Because a lot of people also take this step as a remedy for cheating, as a way to control that if it's been going on in a relationship. So it tends to be like a entry point for a lot of people. And here's what ends up happening, right? These people occupy these spaces kind of looking for these mythical unicorns, which is the single woman who is looking to be taken care of or saved by this couple.
I don't think that's true.
You don't think that's true?
No, I think a lot of unicorn hunters do not want a woman who wants to be taken care of. They want a woman who's going to come in and do some labor.
Okay.
They want a woman who's going to come in a lot. As a matter of fact, I see that type of posting all the time. You think that just because you're a single woman, that makes you so special, and we got to pay for everything, and we're not a bank, we're not an ATM. So I see a lot of that energy. In fact, I think a lot of times they want the unicorn to even come in and help with like childcare and housework. Not uncommon at all.
But they paint it like, this whole like the village opportunity and like, coming together and like the benefits of all those things, which there are benefits if it happens organically and in the right ways. But I've also seen that energy as well, where when the couple, which people call unicorn hunters, is kind of like putting the bait out to the quote unquote unicorn, which is the single bisexual woman that, you'll be taken care of. You'll be loved. You'll receive this abundance of love
We're gonna love on you.
and
Yes,
this abundance of
I see
resources,
that
and
a
we're gonna
lot.
take care of you. We're gonna spoil you. I've seen that energy too. Maybe not as much, but I've seen it.
I've seen some of it as well, but usually that's like in the advertising
Right. That's what I mean.
part of it. And then a lot of times you will see that same person come back later and talk about how they had a bad date with, or they had a bad experience with a woman, and how all these women are out here just trying to take advantage of couples,
That's where I was going
etc.
next.
So, I feel like we could talk about this all day. And again, we did talk about this in a previous episode. So definitely check that one out, because this is a huge one. People really think that every polyamorous person wants to be in a throuple.
Yeah.
Another myth that we probably hear about often is like polyamory is just about sex. That's why people become polyamorous, is because they want to have more sex, and it's all about sex.
Yeah.
And I feel like the first question that people ask when they find out that you're polyamorous is a question about your sex life.
Yeah. It's really interesting about like sex in our society in general, around like, how it's approached, and there's so much stigma around it, and there's still like these feelings of Puritan values around sex, etc., and stigma around sex. So yeah, it's makes sense that that's where people want to go. And one of the truths is that there are so many polyamorous people that are just not very highly sexual. They are truly they're truly polyamorous in terms of they're having the capacity to love and be in intimate relationships that don't necessarily include sex, or they're not sex forward or sex focused relationships. And that's just who they are, and that's what they want. And some people are asexual and they don't crave or desire sex at all, but they still are and identify as polyamorous.
And I think some polyamorous people are here because of the sexual variety. There are some people who have much more sex focused relationships. Speaking for myself, I would say some of my relationships are more sex focused than others. And it really depends. So it's definitely not all about sex for me, but it's not all about sex either.
Yeah. But I think what you're speaking to, that is confusing for a lot of people, because a lot of folks haven't gotten to the point where they hold relationships the way that we do, in terms of the spectrum or like the nuances of relationship. In a conventional, compulsory monogamous world, is like the most important relationship in our lives is the romantic relationship with a partner or a husband or wife, and everyone else is like very much so down the rung secondary. Whereas we're able to, especially because you and I are more like egalitarian in the way we move, we're more like relationship anarchists in the way we move. We have relationships on the spectrum from like platonic to romantic, sexual, and some in between, and some that go back and forth. So we move in a space that's kind of more nuanced and more complex and different than I think most people. So, where in some instances, yeah, it's not all about sex, but and in some instances it is. That may be confusing for some people, but I hope what I just explained, helps kind of give it some room to make sense.
Yeah, I really like that you bring that, because I think a lot of people who are very deeply monogamous think about these things in a very binary way.
Right.
It's either you're with me or you're not. You're faithful or you're not. You're loyal or you're not, right? Like that's very binary. And I would say one of the places where we really align intellectually is that we are not very binary thinkers. Like neither of us is a very binary thinker. And I think we've both always been like this, where we just think about so many things on a spectrum.
Yeah, yeah.
And in that way, it's interesting because another myth is this idea that polyamorous people don't want to commit, right? And are like nonchalant and emotionally kind of like detached, and really they just want to cheat.
Yeah.
Right? They just want to cheat. They want to be able to cheat.
Yeah.
I think that's another example of like some things so binary.
Yeah.
It's like either you're monogamous and you love commitment,
Right.
or you're polyamorous and you fear it and you hate it.
Yeah.
We
Or you
have
should
to-
stay single.
Ooh.
You should just stay single
Ooh.
if you're gonna want to have sex with more than one person.
Oh my gosh, people say that all the time. They're like,
Yeah.
why don't you just stay single? If you're gonna be in a relationship and still date, you should just stay single. What does that even mean?
They have no concept in their mind the idea that you can actually have the type of relationship that we have, where we live together, we do life together. We're very much enmeshed in the ways, like if you look from the outside looking in, that a conventional partnership or marriage would look like, but we have space and capacity to relate, date, and have intimate, close relationships with other people. Some people have no awareness in their mind that that's even a possibility until they, start learning about people like us.
So what do you think about this idea about like fearing commitment? Do you think that polyamory, like, do you feel that you fear commitment?
Absolutely not. I'm very much committed. There's 5 children between us. There's a house with lots of bills and rent between us that we are committed to working out together, figuring out life together, doing all the hard things that adulting requires when you come into this type of dynamic. It is heavy on commitment.
And I want to say he's also quite committed in his other kind of long-term love relationship. And
Good point.
even though I would say their relationship is different from ours, there's still commitment there.
Indeed.
Like,
Indeed.
there's devotion and commitment there for sure.
Yes. There's working through hard things. Because a lot of things about one of the biggest things about commitment is working through the hard things. People who aren't just disposable. When the going gets tough or it's not convenient, you just move on and toss them away. That's not what happens here. Not in this relationship, and not in my other long-term relationship, and in my other non-romantic long-term loving relationships that I've come to in this space that are more platonic. There's still commitment there, and we've gone through some of those relationships. We go through some tough things.
I was going to say something similar. Like, I feel pretty committed in other relationships that I have as well, including my friendships,
Yes.
which so many people overlook that. I have friendships that have endured so long, and that doesn't mean we've never had conflict, and it doesn't mean we've never taken space, but we come back to each other. There's commitment in platonic relationships, and I feel deep commitment in my familial relationships as well.
Yes.
So I don't fear commitment, but I do fear the idea that commitment means guarantee. That is the thing that I kind of don't want. Guarantee meaning like, no matter what happens, I know this relationship is going to remain unchanged.
Right.
That's not commitment to me. That is kind of locking myself into a box. And so I think that's like a minor distinction, or to you, it might be a minor distinction.
Yeah.
To some of you, it might be a minor distinction. But to me, it's a huge distinction.
Yeah. That's a good point too, because I think a lot of those people bring that till death do us part energy, in terms of their lens, that more conventional compulsory monogamy marriage lens, where they take vows that say till death do us part. And, it's interesting because in those vows, it means till death do us part within every dynamic of the relationship: romance, intellectual, platonic, familial, all the things, right? But for me, I have that level of commitment. None of my relationships are disposable in that way. It's just that I don't have the expectation that it's going to look the same till death do us part. I do show up in my relationships, and I desire to be connected with people in that type of, commitment level, but also honoring the needs and the ebbs and flows of each individual relationship, in terms of what's present and what's meaningful and what's aligned in any given season within that relationship. So just because me and someone have a romantic dynamic that is aligned, that doesn't mean that it's going to continue to be that way, 10 years from now. And within the way we live, that's okay. And within conventional marriage, that isn't okay. And that's why we see so much divorce and, et cetera, or people feeling oppressed within that dynamic.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Hope you're enjoying this episode. Let's take a quick break to tell you about something that we've been working on.
We're excited to announce our course and coaching program, Relationship Bliss, where we help polyamorous people transform their relationships into highly compatible, peaceful, deeply aligned, and blissful partnerships.
We do this by sharing techniques for effective communication, deeper connection, and conflict resolution. The program offers a self paced course with 5 learning modules, 25 training videos, and live virtual coaching sessions with us, Shani and Sunjata.
Learn more at go-growdialogue.com.
Thanks for listening. Now back to the show. So, you ready to move to the next one?
Yeah, what you got?
All right. So, a lot of people believe that just because we're polyamorous, we don't get jealous. That is absolutely a myth, y'all. Absolutely a myth. I get jealous over and over and over again. Every time Shani dates a new man, I get jealous each and every time. And there's like a process of getting comfortable with the dynamic that happens. And initially, it's very disorienting. Every time. And then I have to tap into my, my tools. And also just over time, the more time she spends with that person, the more I understand about their dynamic and what it is and where it's going, etc. I understand what's going to change because that's usually where my jealousy lies in like fear of change. Once I understand what changes and how they're going to impact our dynamic and I get used to those changes, then it subsides. But it shows up every time because there's so much unknown.
Yeah, I definitely feel jealousy and envy, and I see it all over the groups. Every time somebody's asking for advice, it almost always has to do with feelings of jealousy or either their own or a love of theirs and like how to deal with it. It's a huge part of this. I think a lot of it has to do with our conditioning. And a lot of people think they can't be polyamorous because they feel jealousy. And I don't know if I agree with that. I think if your jealousy causes, unbearable, turmoil inside of you, then maybe you're not. Right? Maybe polyamory, maybe you need to do some more work, or maybe it's not naturally for you. But I think every polyamorous person has felt at least a little twinge of jealousy at some point during their journey. I know I definitely have. I feel jealousy, definitely envy, and it doesn't have to. It's not just for new dating. I feel it even when he like is in something more established. I still feel it. It recurs for various reasons, and you never know when it's going to rear its head. Like you just don't know what's going to trigger it, and you're like, oh my gosh, now I feel so jealous. I wasn't even expecting this. Sometimes it's a new experience, or sometimes it's an old experience that you just for whatever reason landed differently. So
Yeah.
we definitely get jealous.
Yeah, and I get jealous even with other, loves as well. It's not just Shani. So yeah, it doesn't go away, y'all. It's just something that we learn to navigate and manage. And we have episodes that go deep. For those who want to deep dive, check some of the past episodes in terms of how we navigate it and how we manage it.
Yeah, we definitely had I think, a very open and heartfelt conversation about jealousy and envy on a previous episode. It's a space that can be very uncomfortable to talk about because a lot of times people will kind of judge the feelings that you have. So yeah, check that out if you want to hear us get a little vulnerable.
Yeah. So I think the next one probably applies more to women, I think, than men.
Oh, okay.
Because the next myth is that being polyamorous means that you're open to dating and having sex with anyone.
So definitely applies more to women because, it's so funny. I feel like men will message me in the hopes that I will add them to my roster, as if there's like no qualifications, as if there are no standards, as
Right.
if just anybody
Or
could get it.
preferences, or yeah.
Right, like anybody could get it, no preferences.
Or that
like,
you don't have a life with children and
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 like I
like
don't
other
already have
things and
relationships.
other relationships, like you're
I'm
just
busy.
always open.
Exactly. I just always have time for new dick. Like that's the energy guys give. And I know it's because when you're polyamorous, you are always open to not everyone, but when I am, right, I'm always open to like new connections, but it's got to be a connection. Like there has to be a connection, an organic, authentic connection where I feel drawn to you. There's this like uh, this energy where it's like a man thinks if he is interested in you, you should be interested in him. Like you owe him interest,
Yeah.
especially when you're polyamorous. And I think part of it is because they think you're a hoe. You know, they think you're a hoe, and if you're a hoe, then
It's for anybody.
why can't I get it, right?
Yeah.
If you're giving it to multiple people, why can't I get it? And
Hmm.
woo, especially when you're polyamorous, I definitely feel like this is much more common.
For women, especially like when I see some of the messages that she gets, and when I tell y'all like the lack of effort, literally a dude would just be like, "Hey, I'm in your area. Let's go out." A guy that she doesn't even know, who hasn't even taken the time to establish any back and forth communication, hasn't taken the time to express what his interests are, what her interests are, see if there's any alignment. Like dudes literally who just follow her on Facebook, who are just, fans, stands, whatever, will literally just be like, "Yo, I'm in your town, let's hang out."
Yeah,
Or some are even more direct around like just getting straight to it, like, "Yo, can we have sex?" or whatever. Like just like she just literally is just open to anyone. It blows my mind that there's not even like an effort to wanna court or date and get to know and woo and whatever. It's like they just be straight to it, and it's wild to me the approach that some of these dudes take.
Or they'll say things like, "I'm interested in you. I'm interested in getting to know you. Let's go out." What? You're interested in getting to know me, so we should go out. What's my motivation for wanting to go out with you? And I think to them, it's she's polyamorous.
Yeah.
So
And I'm interested in her, so she should be interested in me too.
that's really the energy that
That's wild.
it fascinates me. And it sometimes they'll even like come back after a long period of time of nothing, like no in between, no like conversations in between to try to do more getting to know you. It's just popping up every now and then, like, "Hey, what's up? You want to hang out? Hey, what's up? Can I get to know you better?" I'm gonna give the fellas a little tip here. Don't ask to get to know a woman better. Ask her some questions. Maybe
Make an effort to get to know her
can
better.
actually get to know her. I don't know if you need to ask a woman if you can get to know her, because why would she want to get to know you? What's special about you?
Right.
So that one's always interesting. You don't think that's the case for women? Is it because you feel like women aren't like seeking in the same way that men
Yeah.
are?
Yeah. Men are usually the ones that are on the hunt.
Right.
More often.
Yeah.
And even for me, there may be some people who have that perception of me, and it's just or just other polyamorous men, and it's just not the truth. Like,
I think that would make women less interested in you in general, thinking that anybody could get it.
yeah, and it's just not the case. I'm still discerning. I'm still busy in life, and I don't have time to just be dating all the time and meeting new people all the time. And I'm just someone who honestly just doesn't like dating. I'm always open to the right organic, align. I'm open to align good energy, etc. I'm open to that, but that doesn't show up every day. It takes time, and it's for all the things, like someone I'm actually attracted to, someone that I'm intellectually curious about, and vice versa. We have similar interests, similar values, all those things that align. That's hard. It's hard to find, y'all. So just because I'm polyamorous doesn't mean I'm just out here dating willy-nilly just for the fun of it. Like dating, it takes time, effort, energy, and it's hard. And again, I got children, I got a life, I got work, I got other relationships that I do have that I'm always nurturing and cultivating, etc. So yeah, it's not the case that we're always open to dating or relating with anyone anytime.
Yeah, that's a good one. Speaking of having a life and being busy,
Yeah.
the last one I want to talk about today that we should really, I would really kind of want to end this, although we did have an episode on this as well previously, is that polyamory is somehow detrimental or harmful for your children and their development.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think about that? We talked about this before, by the way. We talked about parenting, how we, approach parenting as polyamorous people, and we talked about being conscious parents and trying to treat our children like, humans and
Yeah.
raise them to be free people, etc.
Yeah. I would ask, when someone says that, oftentimes my first question is, well, why? And then if you get them talking enough and answering that why question, or what do you mean by that question, what typically gets uncovered is that they hold being non-monogamous as, morally wrong in some way.
Right.
And what it shows is that they haven't deconstructed some of their, let's say, religious, teachings and values. Some of the compulsory non-monogamy, that monogamy is the right way and only way towards being a wholesome, human being. And they're still carrying some guilt. There's even still people who are actually living polyamorously and that hide it from their children or family members because I feel like they haven't accepted within themselves that it's okay to be who they are and that there's nothing inherently corrupt or wrong or whatever about, living this way.
Yeah. And I think this also ties back to people's misconception that polyamory is all about sex. People's first thought is, your children are being exposed to that. And I'm like, exposed to what? Like, what do you think I'm doing in front of them?
Right.
Nothing that you would, I don't do anything in front of my children that you wouldn't do in front of your children,
Right. Right.
I like to keep things private and personal away from them as well, but they know, and if they have questions, they will ask. The thing I always like to bring up is that my kids just don't really care. A couple of times they have asked questions, but for the most part, they're just like, that's my mom. She handles business, right? Like, we got food. We get to go places and go where, we get our rides to school and we get picked up and we're being taken care of. They're really not all up in my personal life like that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And also, again, like you said, it speaks to how some people still hold stigma around sex, and we're sex positive. And my children know that I'm sex positive. I talk to my children about sex. I have a different relationship around sex with my children. I don't hide it. I don't hide it as some like thing that they can't know about. I buy them books about sex. We talk about sex. It isn't like some taboo topic in my household and my relationship with my children. And then the other thing is when I introduced it to my children, it wasn't like I was introducing like, hey kids, I have sex with a lot of people or anything like that. It was literally your father has a capacity to love more than one person romantically, intimately, etc. And, and my daughter literally at the age of 9, when she first learned, was like, so you have a big heart, and that's how she held it, that her daddy has a big heart.
I think we've talked about this again in a previous episode, but explaining this to your kids in an age appropriate way is always, we're not deviants. We're not talking about our sex life with the kids, but as our children are getting older, because we've got how many teenagers? We have a lot of teenagers.
Yeah, 4
around
teenagers
here
now
these days. Okay, we have a lot of teenagers around here, so we do talk to them about sex because they're getting to an age where they're interested. But before, when they were younger, like when he first introduced it to them, he introduced it in an age appropriate way. There's no talking about you weren't talking about sex with your kids then. As they've gotten older, of course, we have more conversations with our kids about sex.
Not my sex life though.
Exactly.
Just about sexual health.
Exactly.
Sexual, thoughts and practices,
and
etc.
making good choices. Making choices that feel good for yourself, and recognizing that adolescents are gonna have sex if they want to. So just trying to create a safe space so that they can actually talk about it and feel open about it, because you don't want your kids to be in a situation where they are making bad choices.
Yeah, right? And the last thing I'll say about it is, one of the perspectives that I shared with an adult in my life early on when they were having concerns around this, I was like, what is harmful about the idea of my children having more love in their life? More village, more community, more adults who are looking out for them and caring for them. more people saying happy birthday, more people that are sending gifts and money on their birthday. The kids love it that there's more people interested in their lives, and again, showering them with praise or gifts on their birthdays or celebrations on their graduating, different things like that. It's literally, more people to hang out with, more experiences. It's just more abundance and love and community and relationship. Like, what's harmful about that?
Yeah, and as my children struggle with how things are going with their father, it's so gratifying to me that they have people in their lives that they know love them and can depend on, so they don't have to depend solely on family. They can have lots of family, and it
Yes.
doesn't have to be just blood family, and that is so beautiful to me. Isn't a village and a community like what we all want? Yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great time for us to close out with our segment.
Yes.
So we can teach y'all a couple things today, because our segment today is consensual non-monogamy terms. So we're gonna talk about some different terms, and we'll try to tie it into some myth stuff too, because I definitely think the first term we're gonna talk about is what a lot of people think polyamory actually is.
Yeah.
So,
They conflate the two often.
and it's swinging. Right? A lot of people think that if you're polyamorous, you must be a swinger, and you can be a swinger and not be polyamorous, and you could be polyamorous and not be a swinger.
Yeah.
So what's swinging?
So swinging basically is where you have typically a married couple who are willing to engage in sex outside of their marriage with other swingers, meaning typically it's like in a controlled environment. It's at a house party or a club specifically for these groups of people.
Or with people you know.
And a lot of times they're sharing the same space, and it only happens at these events, right? And it's like where they're willing to either swap or have like group sex dynamics, but there's no relationships, like emotional ties. There's no romantic element. It's strictly physical sex outside of that
And they're
marriage
typically
or
doing
partnership.
it together. Swingers are typically sticking together when they do it. So if they're interacting with other people, they're still like in the same room.
Yeah.
There's different terms, there's like soft swap, full swap. So there's various different, we're not going to get into all that because we're actually not primarily swingers. I wouldn't say I'm opposed to swinging, but I wouldn't say primarily, no.
So the next term,
Kind of like swinging, but a little bit step like further into polyamory, I would say.
is open relationships.
Yeah.
And it's again, like all these things are on a spectrum.
Yep.
Right. And so like open relationship is moving down the spectrum.
Yeah.
Where it depends on the couple in terms of, is it more like polyamory or is it more like swinging? Because even in open relationships where, again, a married couple or partners will say, you can go off and have relationships with other people. It's open. Or you can go off and have sex with other people, but you can't have romantic relationships. It's strictly sexual. Like,
there's different rules when it comes to that.
They give each other different rules, and there's
Right.
different expectations. Even though, as we know, humans are humans. And sometimes, even when they say, no, don't catch feelings, it happens. I feel like a lot of people confront that, but that's another topic. But open relationship, you want to say any more about what that means?
I think what makes it an open relationship is that you have to have a primary person, and everybody else outside of that relationship is not primary. Like, they won't. It's an open relationship is inherently hierarchical.
Right.
And sometimes it's closer to swinging than it is to polyamory, like Sunjata said. So sometimes people will say you can have sex, but emotional fidelity is necessary.
Right.
And then other times, some people will say you can have other relationships, but maybe I don't want to know about it or whatever.
Yep.
So open relationships can have different definitions, but I would not say that Sunjata and I are in an open relationship. I would say we are polyamorous, which is a little different. It's one step further, because when you're polyamorous, basically it means that you can and do have multiple loving emotionally loving relationships.
Right.
So that is part of the definition of polyamorous, whereas you don't need to have that in an open relationship.
Right. Right. And another consensual non-monogamy term that is further along the spectrum of, relating outside of monogamy is the one that we've been talking about. That's a major theme is, polyamorous, right? And it's interesting because we talk about polyamory versus polyamorous. And, polyamory, is kind of like the definition for the, I guess the structure or the relationship type that people like Shannon and I engage in. And then polyamorous is kind of like an identity that some of us hold, because I consider myself polyamorous. However, there's people that are in like the polyamory spaces and et cetera that don't necessarily consider themselves polyamorous. They may say, I'm ethically non-monogamous or I'm consensually non-monogamous
Or
ambiamorous, but I'm not polyamorous. So if someone is ambiamorous, that means that they're able to be in a polyamorous relationship or a relationship that looks like polyamory, or engage in polyamory, or a monogamous relationship, depending on who the person that they're, that's their like primary, for people who identify in those ways, relationship is with. They can do either or.
I know lots of people also think ethically non-monogamous, that term is like an umbrella term for everything that we just talked about, including swinging, open relationship, and polyamorous. And so a lot of people like to call themselves ethically non-monogamous because they feel like they can do all of those things in there: swinging, open relationship, polyamory. And a lot of people prefer the more general label. If they can pick between a general and a not so general and a specific label, they would rather pick the more general label.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of on that team. I do think of myself as polyamorous because that's the way I have been, living, but I could see myself being a swinger. I could see myself being in an open relationship. I could see myself being polyamorous, monogamous, non-monogamous. So I like the larger label as well. I also prefer that.
I appreciate that you spoke that, because I think a lot of people are afraid to accept, or some people just don't believe what I think is really natural, and that's that we change. And, humans change, y'all. And we're not always the same. Like, we come into different understandings about ourselves during different seasons of our lives for different reasons.
And even from day to day, okay? Because sometimes there are some days where I'm like, you know what? I might not be feeling polyamory as much that day for whatever reason, okay? Lots of reasons. And maybe I'm feeling more, I don't feel like seeing anyone else. I'm more monogamous. Like, even from day to day, that can change. And I fluctuate all the time. Yeah. But like you said, seasons of life is a big one. And that's part of like going back to what we talked about and being committed to people even through their seasons of life.
Yeah. Whereas for me, since the day I learned that I was polyamorous, I've consistently felt polyamorous, and it feels really like a comfortable space for me and a good descriptor for me.
So he prefers the more specific label, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of more like, I'll take the larger one. I'll take the bigger label.
Yeah.
And then the last term is the one I think a lot of people think they mean polyamory, but they say this. Or they mean this, but they say polyamory. So polygamy is when you have multiple spouses. Yeah. And that means that there is fidelity in polygamy. So you have polygyny or polygyny, depending on how you want to say it, where it's multiple wives and one husband. And there's polyandry, which is multiple husbands and one wife. And that does exist. There are places in the world where that is practiced. Yeah. And there are people who practice that. But polygamy is multiple spouses. So in my opinion, it does imply fidelity and close dynamics.
Yeah. And a lot of people that are in poly spaces
are truly polygamous.
And they're truly living, a polygamy dynamic. And oftentimes, again, it's a man with multiple women loves. The women don't engage with each other in any type of romantic context. But they're doing like the polygamy thing for practical financial reasons or religious reasons, etc. Yeah.
So let's you got anything else on that? I'm trying to think. Polygamy, we have any other terms? No, I think we covered them all.
I think that's it. I think that's a good intro to some terms for this particular episode. So once again, y'all, it's been fun. Thank y'all for joining us for another episode, and we'll see y'all next time. Love y'all. Peace. That's a wrap for this episode of Sunshine and Rainbows. We hope today's conversation sparked some new insights, deep reflections, or just gave you a fresh perspective on love and connection.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop us a comment, send us your questions, or share your own experiences. We might even feature them in a future episode.
And don't forget to subscribe to Sunshine and Rainbows on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you're vibing with us, please like, comment, share, and leave a review. It helps others find the show and keeps these conversations going.
Want more sunshine and rainbows? Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Sunshine Rainbows for daily insights, behind the scenes moments, and updates on future episodes. You can get more in-depth and intellectual with us on our Substack, sustainablesolutionsmedia.com. If you like what we're saying over there, consider becoming a paid subscriber to support all our liberation and anti-oppression efforts.
As always, thank you for rocking with us. We so appreciate the love and support. Until next time, we love y'all. Peace.